Hi everyone, my name's Emily Teacher. Today we're going to read The Story of Silk. As soft as silk, we say, with good reason, for silk is among the softest and finest of all fabrics. But where does silk come from? The silkworms that produce it mainly come from China, where they have been domesticated for thousands of years by silk farmers. According to a legend, a Chinese empress known as the Lady of Xiling began the cultivation of silkworms in 2640 BCE. The practice then spread from China to other regions. Silk producing areas today include Japan, Korea, India, Thailand, and Brazil. So, we're going to talk all about silk and where exactly does it come from? How is it made? The story of silk begins when the female moths lay its eggs, up to 500 of them at a time. They are minute, each smaller than the head of a pin. The eggs are stored in a cool place to inhibit their growth until the silk farmer is ready to use them. At that time, they are transferred to a heated container called an incubator. 20 days later, tiny silkworms start to hatch. So these eggs are so super duper tiny. So for the incubator, they can fit quite a lot in there because the eggs are so small. And after this, 20 days later, the silkworms start to hatch. And this is where the production gets a little more interesting. At this stage of its life, a silkworm does just one thing: it eats. And it eats just one thing: the leaves of the mulberry tree. A silkworm eats continuously, and it grows bigger and bigger until it seems ready to burst out of its skin. Then it stops eating, and it remains motionless for about a day, a sign that it will soon shed its old skin and replace it with a new one. The shedding occurs 4 times altogether. When fully grown, at about 6 weeks, the silkworm has increased its size 70-fold. It now stops eating and prepares to enter the next stage of its life. So, over this 6 weeks, the silkworm just eats and eats and eats and grows and grows. And 4 times it will take its skin off, right? It will shed a layer of its skin. And at the end of this time, it has grown more than 70 times as big as it was when it started. To accomplish this, the silkworm first sheathes itself into a cocoon. The cocoon is a kind of protective shell made from silk thread that the silkworm produces from a part of its body called the spinneret. During the 3 weeks it spends inside the cocoon, the silkworm turns into a fully grown moth. It has no teeth, so it cannot eat its way out. Instead, it produces a liquid that dissolves the silk, making a hole in the cocoon. Then it slowly pulls itself through the hole. Once it has emerged from the cocoon, it is free to stretch its wings, although they serve no useful function. Centuries of careful breeding have resulted in the silk moth's wings being so feeble that it cannot fly. So, after it grows, then naturally the silkworm wants to turn into a moth. So it puts itself in this cocoon. It covers itself in silk thread to stay in this cocoon where it spends 3 weeks until it comes out as a moth. But because people have been using silkworm for so long just to make silk, they've bred them together so their wings don't really work. Even if they become a moth, they can't fly away anywhere. Most silkworms, however, do not survive to become moths. The few that do are used for breeding. They're used to make more silkworms. The farmer takes the rest while still in their cocoons and heats them in an oven to kill them. The silk, which is up to a mile long, is then carefully unwound from the cocoon by machines. It can then be spun and woven into cloth. The silk cloth is used to make men's and women's apparel, as well as upholstery, sheets, curtain materials, and even carpets. So, this is why they're kind of useless when they become moths because they have destroyed the cocoon. But the silk that we use comes from the cocoon. So the farmer will heat the sleeping moths in the cocoons until they die so that they can unravel the cocoon and use that thread to make silk. So we use this silk for a lot of things. You can use it to make a lot of clothes, sheets, curtains, carpets. Silk is used for many, many, many things. Silk is the strongest of all natural fibers, and it is also light in weight, warmer than cotton, rayon, or linen, and wrinkle resistant. These qualities, together with its incredible softness, make it highly desirable to those who appreciate the finer things in life. So it's a very complicated process to get silk. So usually silk is for people who appreciate the finer things in life because it is more expensive, right? There's so many good qualities to it. It's very light, it's very strong, doesn't wrinkle, and it's very, very soft. So if you want something silk, you might have to pay a little extra to get it. Thanks for reading with me today. We do have links that are related to each of our stories here. If you want the link for this article, you can find it down in the description below.